I was less than 10 seconds from locking my front door when I realized someone else had a copy of my route. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl. Not the chase, not the screaming tires, not the way my steering wheel shook when his truck hit my bumper. What disturbs me the most is knowing that none of it was random. My job: I deliver medical supplies overnight for a regional company. My job involves transporting boxes of IV bags, antibiotics, syringes, and occasionally a cooler of blood, all of which must reach a small hospital before sunrise. I'm 26 and based out of a small town in Wyoming. Most nights, my world is just my cargo van, a 2-lane highway, and whatever true crime podcast can keep me awake. That December night, this happened last December, right before Christmas. The air was so cold that it burned your lungs. My route that night was simple. Leave the depot at 9 p.m., drive 2 hours east on Highway 18, drop a pallet at a clinic in a town called Red Mesa, grab coffee at a fuel stop, then head back the same way. I'd done it dozens of times. I knew every billboard and broken fence post on that road. Everything felt normal until I pulled into that gas station. The gas station, they call it a travel plaza, but that makes it sound nicer than it is. 4 pumps, a small building, buzzing yellow lights, and a tiny diner that closes at 11. The only reason I ever stop there is because the coffee doesn't taste like burnt plastic, and the person at the counter lets me refill for free if I look tired enough. It was 11:40 p.m. when I rolled in. Snow was drifting sideways across the lot. There were only 3 vehicles: my van, a rusty blue sedan, and a dark pickup backed into the farthest corner of the parking lot. It was so far from the building, it looked like it was hiding. I actually thought of that word, hiding. I parked under the brightest light and jogged inside. The bell above the door chimed. The clerk, a skinny guy with a man bun and permanent eye bags, barely glanced up from his phone. "Back again," he muttered, like he always does to everyone. "Coffee in the bathroom," I said, sliding a couple of bills across the counter. He pushed my bathroom key on a huge yellow plastic fob without looking up. The bathrooms are outside, around the side of the building, through a metal door that always sticks in the cold. Something felt wrong. The wind slapped me in the face as soon as I stepped back out. I almost skipped the bathroom, but I still had 2 hours of driving ahead. I rounded the corner, boots crunching on frozen slush, feeling the light from the front of the station fade behind me. The bathroom door scraped open on the second shove. Tiny room, buzzing fluorescent lights, rust stains in the sink. I did what I needed to do, splashed my face to wake up, and checked my phone on reflex. 0 bars. Normal for that stretch. I was drying my hands on my jeans when I heard it. The sound of tires on gravel filled my ears. Close. Slow. I turned the faucet off and listened. Footsteps followed, 2 sets, steady and deliberate, moving around the backside of the building toward where my van was parked. I told myself it was just late-night traffic. Truckers, locals, people meet in parking lots all the time. Then I heard my van's back doors rattle. Something icy slid down my spine. They were waiting for me. I cracked the bathroom door an inch and leaned into the gap. The pickup had moved. Earlier, someone had backed it in from a distance. Now it was idling directly behind my van, angled just enough to block me from reversing. No headlights, just the faint orange glow of the parking lights. 2 men stood in the space between my van and their truck. One had his hands shoved in his jacket pockets, shoulders hunched, staring at my rear doors like he was trying to figure out the lock. The other paced a little closer to the building, scanning the lot, hood up. No laughter, no talking. Just that tense, waiting energy. I eased the door shut and quietly turned the lock. My heart was pounding so hard it made my shirt jump. I pulled my phone out again by instinct, still no service. The multi-tool in my pocket suddenly felt like a toy. Footsteps crunched past the bathroom wall. A moment later, I heard the front doorbell chime faintly through the cinder block. Voices. The clerk, The voice belonged to one of the men. I pressed my ear to the cold metal. The moment everything changed. "You just missed him," one of the guys said. "Nah, he'll be back," the clerk answered casually. "He always stops here, medical delivery. He travels towards the east and returns after midnight. That white van's his." "That white van is mine," the guy laughed softly. "What's his name again?" There was a pause. Then the clerk said my first name, clear, casual. He seemed to be reading it directly from a sheet. My stomach dropped. I had never told the clerk my name. That's when everything snapped into sharp focus. They weren't just random, sketchy guys. They knew my schedule. They knew Had I drove, they knew who I was. The bathroom doorknob rattled. "Are you almost done in there, man?" A voice called, too cheerful. I backed away from the door, heart pounding in my throat. Yeah, 1 minute," I forced out, trying to sound annoyed, not terrified. "We're in no rush," he said. "We can wait." The knob stopped moving, but I could see his shadow under the door. He was staying right there. The escape, the only other exit, was the tiny, grimy window high up on the wall. I dragged the metal trash can under it and climbed up, boots slipping. The frame was old, single-pane glass, probably brittle. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my keys. The door suddenly thudded as someone put their shoulder into it. The cheap lock groaned. I grabbed the metal soap dispenser and slammed it into the window. Glass exploded outward into the snow. "What the man outside yelled, and the door shuddered harder. Cold air blasted into my face. I shoved my forearms through the broken frame, ignoring the sting of glass, and hauled myself up. My hip stuck for a second. Behind me, the bathroom door cracked at the latch. Adrenaline did the rest. I tumbled out into the snow, landed hard on my side, and rolled down a shallow slope. My vision blurred. By the time I got my feet under me, one of the men was skidding around the corner of the building, his boots sliding on the ice. "Stop," he shouted. Not a chance. Running for my life, I sprinted toward the dark strip of trees behind the station. The snow came up to my shins, dragging at every step. I could hear him closing the distance, taking harsh breaths and cursing. "Make the situation worse," he yelled. That line told me everything I needed to know about their plans. I hit the ditch behind the station. Half-frozen mud under loose snow, slid, stumbled, climbed the other side, and dove into the trees. Branches slapped my face and clawed at my jacket. I ducked behind a trunk thick enough to hide me and held my breath. Silence. Then faintly the sound of my van's sliding door opening. They were in my cargo area. The call for help. My hands fumbled with my phone. One bar flickered to life. Roaming. I didn't think. I just dialed 911. The call dragged before it connected. When the dispatcher finally answered, I whispered my location, the highway number, the name of the town, what the men looked like, and what the clerk had said. She told me to stay hidden and that it would take at least 20 minutes for a patrol car to get there. 20 minutes felt like forever. Through gaps in the trees, I saw headlights flare. The pickup swung out from behind my van and repositioned near the exit, idling. One of the men paced in the snow, talking into his phone. I stayed curled up behind that tree until blue and red lights finally flashed down the highway. 2 cruisers pulled into the lot. The pickup's lights snapped off. A second later, it shot forward, fishtailing onto the road and tearing off into the darkness. They never found it that night. The aftermath: the officers followed the tracks for a mile before snow and ice swallowed them. Back at the station, they walked me through the lot. There were pry marks on my rear doors, fresh footprints where someone had stood, leaning against the van for a long time. The clerk kept insisting he didn't know they were weird, and that he didn't think it was a big deal to share my route and my name. Maybe he was naive. Perhaps he truly did not grasp the nature of individuals who linger along abandoned highways after midnight. My company changed my route the next week. They shuffled stops, told us not to use that gas station anymore, and updated the safety policy packet. But none of that changes the part that haunts me. What still keeps me up at night: somewhere out there, someone had my schedule written down. They knew what I carried. They knew which nights I drove alone on an empty stretch of Highway 18. They got one thing wrong that night. They thought I'd be the kind of driver who rolls his window down when a stranger knocks on the door. If a stranger ever waves you down on an empty mountain road with a giant smile and says, "We're just four girls on a road trip, don't stop." That line almost got us killed. The road trip. I was 23, driving with three college friends from Denver to a rental cabin in northern Idaho. No guys, no parents, no plan except cheap wine, board games, and trashy movies. We left after work on a Friday and, because we were stupid, decided to push through most of the drive overnight. It was late October, just cold enough that the air felt sharp but not quite snow season. We cut off the main interstate to save an hour, following a two-lane mountain highway that my friend Cass swore was totally safe. My uncle constantly drives it. By midnight, I was the only one still awake. Pine trees crowded both sides of the road. Fog pooled in the dips. The car's high beams carved out a little tunnel of visibility, and beyond that, nothing. My friends snored and shifted in the seats behind me. The GPS showed a solid green line with no towns for another 40 miles. That's when I saw the hazard lights. The stranded girl. A silver SUV was pulled onto the shoulder up ahead, hazard lights blinking orange in the dark. A woman stood beside it, waving both arms like she was trying to flag down a passing lifeboat. As my headlights swept over her, I saw she was my age, maybe younger, wearing jeans and a light jacket, clearly shivering. My foot eased off the gas automatically. I remembered all those posts and podcasts about highway scams, fake breakdowns, bait victims. But I also thought about how absolutely terrifying it would be to be stuck out here alone with a dead car and no service. The woman stepped closer to the road, hands cupped to her mouth. "Please," she shouted over the engine. "Can you help us? We're just four girls. We lost signal, please." I muttered under my breath. There was no one else outside the SUV. The back windows were tinted so darkly that I couldn't see inside. "Don't," a small voice in my head said. "Keep driving." I slowed anyway. The decision. My friends woke up as the car slowed down. Cass leaned forward from the back seat, hair stuck to her cheek. "What's going on?" "A car on the side," I said. "She looks stranded." "We can't just leave her," our friend Jenna said immediately. "That's who she is, the kind who cries at animal shelter commercials." The moral debate lasted maybe 5 seconds. The SUV was getting closer. The girl was now practically in the lane. I pulled onto the shoulder about 15 feet behind her and left the engine running. I instinctively locked the doors. The girl jogged over immediately, cheeks red from the cold, eyes wide and shiny in my headlights. Thank you," she said in a rush. "Our battery died, my phone's on 1%, and my friend is freaking out. There's no signal. Could you just give us a jump? It'll take 2 seconds, I swear." She glanced back over her shoulder. In that split second, all of us looked too. Something wasn't right. For a moment, everything looked normal. Silver SUV, slight dent in the back bumper, fog drifting. Then, in the faint glow of her hazards, I saw the rear passenger door open just a crack. Not all the way. Just ready. I remembered something then from a story I'd heard. If you can't see everyone in the car, never get out. How many of you are there? I asked. 4, she said. Me, my cousin, and 2 friends. We're heading to a cabin like you guys. Please, it's freezing. She laughed a little like she was trying to sound harmless. Girl trip, right? I didn't laugh. Pop your hood, I said instead. We'll pull up next to you. Oh, it's already popped, she stammered. I'm freezing. Could I sit with you while? She reached for my door handle. Every hair on my arm stood up. The moment I knew. I had locked the doors, but the sound of her fingers fumbling at the handle made my chest tighten. Cass snapped, fully awake behind me. Don't open it, Cass said sharply. I don't like this. The girl's smile flickered. The smile only lingered for a brief moment, then it was back. I swear we're just stuck, she said. Look, I can show you. She stepped sideways, angling her body like she was trying to get a better view into our car. Her eyes darted to each of us, counting, assessing. Something about the way she moved told me the issue wasn't about a dead battery. I tried to think logically. If they really needed a jump, I could drive to the next town and call a tow truck. If they were legit, they'd be grateful. If they weren't. Sorry, I said, forcing my voice to sound firm. We don't have cables. I can report it when we get a signal. Her expression went flat in an instant. Seriously, she said, her voice suddenly harder. You're just going to leave us out here? We'll call for help from the next town, I repeated. We're low on gas. This time her eyes slid past me toward T. He SUV. The rear door slid open a little more. That was it for me. Seatbelts, I whispered. I didn't wait to see if my friends obeyed. The chase begins. I threw the car into drive and hit the gas. The girl jumped back, slapping the hood as we lurched forward. In the rearview mirror, I saw the SUV's front door fly open. A tall shadow stepped out, something metallic glinting in his hand. A man. This was a man, not another girl. No one ran toward us. They didn't need to. They had a car. Go, 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 Jenna chanted from the backseat, voice shaking. The highway curved, and for a moment I lost sight of them. Then I saw their headlights swing into my mirror. They were following. The needle climbed past 60, then 70. The SUV stayed with us, not getting closer, not dropping back, just hanging there, 2 car lengths behind, like a shark waiting for us to tire out. Is there a town? Cass asked, gripping the headrest. I looked at the GPS. The next little dot in civilization was 29 miles away. They're high-beaming us, Jenna whispered. Playing cat and mouse. Sure enough, the lights behind us suddenly flared. The mirror turned white. My eyes watered. I wanted to slam on my brakes just to get them off my bumper, but that's precisely what they'd want. Instead, I flicked my own lights off for half a second, then back on. The sudden change must have messed with their depth perception. The SUV drifted a little, overcorrected, then steadied again. I remembered another tip from some highway safety article. Get somewhere public, don't go home, and don't stop in the dark. A blue sign appeared in the distance. Rest area 1 mile. Don't, Cass said, they'll box us in. There's more, I said. Look. Under the rest area icon was another line. Truck parking, 24-hour. If there are trucks, there are people, I said. I'm not letting them chase us for half an hour. No one argued. The escape. I exited at the last second, tires squealing, hands slick on the wheel. The SUV followed too close. The rest area appeared like an island of light, rows of semis, a small brick building, and vending machines glowing behind glass. I didn't park. I drove straight through the lot, horn blaring, weaving between trucks until a couple of drivers turned to look. Then I slammed the brakes next to a cluster of rigs, rolled down my window, and yelled, "They're following us." Several things happened at once. A trucker in a flannel jacket hopped down from his cab, shouting something I didn't catch. Another stepped out with his phone held up, filming. The SUV that had been glued to my bumper suddenly slowed, then did a wide, shaky loop around the lot and headed back toward the exit. They never completely stopped, they never got out, they just left. The aftermath. We sat there shaking, our car idling between two 18-wheelers while the truckers asked if we were okay, if we needed to call the police, and if anyone had gotten a plate number. No one had. They'd kept their distance, stayed just far enough back that all I could make out was the shape and the color. We still filed a report with the local sheriff. The deputy nodded like he'd heard versions of this before. He told us gently that we'd been stupid to drive that stretch at night. He told us roadside scams were getting more sophisticated. "You did the right thing coming here," he said. "Next time don't stop at all." We made it to the cabin around 4 a.m., shaky and exhausted. We should have been unloading snacks and laughing, filming TikToks and making stupid inside jokes. Instead, we double-checked the locks 3 times and slept in the same room with a chair shoved under the doorknob. What I learned. My foot now does the opposite when I see hazard lights on an empty road. It presses down. People always worry about the creepy stranger in the parking lot. They should worry more about the person who already has the keys. In 2020, I drove rideshare full-time in the Midwest. When the pandemic hit and bars closed, the city rides dried up, but the company rolled out a long-distance essential travel option. Driving nurses, students, and brave tourists between cities could earn you decent money, provided they wore masks. I took one of those runs from Omaha to a tiny college town in western Iowa one Friday night. The girl I dropped off was polite and quiet. She tipped me in cash and disappeared into a dorm, easy money. It was close to midnight. I could have driven back in one shot, but I'd been awake since 6 that morning. My eyes were burning. When a blue sign announced a rest area 2 miles ahead, I decided to pull in, stretch, and splash some water on my face. The rest stop was small but bright, a loop of parking, a low brick building, and a row of vending machines. A single sedan sat under a light, empty. No semis, no RVs, the kind of place you tell yourself is safe because it looks clean. I parked near the entrance and went inside. The lobby had that generic government feel: laminated posters about littering, a faded map, and a brochure rack. The bathroom doors were to the left. A yellow wet floor sign sat crookedly in the hall. The men's room was empty. I took a stall, scrolled my phone for a minute, one bar, then washed my hands. The sinks were spotless. Trash cans empty, everything smelt like lemon cleaner. As I turned to leave, the door opened and a man in a gray janitor's jumpsuit stepped in, carrying a mop and a wheeled bucket. His mask was pulled down under his chin, showing a thin mouth and patchy beard. His eyes flicked over me, then to the floor. "Evening," I said automatically. He didn't say anything, just nodded and pushed the bucket to one side. Something about him felt off, not in any obvious way, just the way he moved, too stiff, like someone trying to act like they belonged there. I dried my hands and stepped past him. His shoulder barely brushed mine, but it sent a weird chill through me. The back of his jumpsuit had the state's highway department logo on it. Below it, stenciled in white, was a name I didn't fully catch. M.R. something. I told myself I was being paranoid. Back in the lobby, I debated hitting the vending machines. My stomach growled. I dug in my pocket for change, came up empty, and decided to just get coffee at the next gas station. That decision probably saved my life. As I walked out into the cold air, I did what I always do: hit the Go Online's button on my driver app to see if there were any rides nearby. My screen flashed, warning: out of service zone. Then it glitched. For a full second, the map scrambled, roads twisting, icons flickering. The app froze. When it snapped back into place, my little car icon had jumped half a mile to the east. I frowned and backed out of the app, then glanced up at my car. The dome light was on. I hadn't left it that way. Every muscle in my body tightened. I slowed my walk, forcing my face to stay neutral, like nothing was wrong. Through the windscreen, I could see my front seats. Empty. The back seat looked normal. The trunk cover was still pulled over my bags. Still, the dome light was on. Someone had opened a door. I clicked my key fob from 10 feet away. The horn chirped and the lights blinked. I opened the driver's door and leaned in, scanning the seat and floor. Nothing. I reached up to flick the dome light off. The switch was already set to door. So it hadn't been me. The light had come on because a door had opened. I checked the back doors, then the trunk, closed, latched. My heart hammered as I did another slow scan of the lot. The other sedan was still there, dark, no one in sight. The highway beyond was a black ribbon. Maybe the wind had pushed it open. Maybe I'd imagined it. I climbed in and started the engine anyway. As my headlights lit the ground, something shiny flashed in my peripheral vision. A small metal cylinder on the ground by my front tire. I opened the door again and picked it up. It was a disposable rubber glove, rolled up tight like someone had peeled it off in a hurry and dropped it. It wasn't mine. That was when my gut finally screamed loud enough to override the logical part of my brain. I put the glove on the passenger seat like it was evidence and got back on the highway, hands clenched too tight on the wheel. My plan was simple: drive to the next exit with a gas station, sit under as many cameras and lights as possible, and calm down. I didn't make it that far before something worse happened. About 10 minutes down the road, a white panel van merged from an on-ramp behind me. No windows on the sides, no logo, just a boxy shape and dull headlights. I wouldn't have thought twice about it except for one detail. On the driver's door in P. Ling gray letters, I saw the same highway department logo as on the jumpsuit. My mouth went dry. The van kept a steady distance for a while, then it inched closer and closer. I accelerated to 75. The van matched me. No attempt to pass, no attempt to fall back. I told myself again that I was being dramatic. Then its high beam snapped on. The world went white in my rearview mirror. I flinched and drifted for a second before correcting. The van held that blinding glare, then flicked its lights off, then on again, like it was testing how I reacted. Okay, I muttered, nope. Up ahead, a green sign, fuel 3 miles. I stayed in the right lane, trying to look like just another tired driver. The van crept even closer until I could barely see its hood. My exit approached. I signaled early, hard in my throat. The van didn't react. I took the ramp at the last second, tires squealing on the curve. For a moment, I thought I'd lost him. Then his headlights swept across my mirror again as he followed. The gas station at the bottom of the hill was small but bright, with 4 cars at the pumps and a semi idling along the side. I didn't pull up to a pump. I drove straight to the front door, practically blocking it, and jumped out. I walked quickly, too quickly inside. A woman in her 40s stood behind the counter. A teenage boy in a reflective vest was stocking chips. "Ma'am," I said, louder than I meant to, "there's a van that's been following me from the rest area. Can I just stand here for a minute?" She looked over my shoulder, eyes narrowing. "White van?" she asked. "Yeah." "No logo." "Fake highway logo," I said, "like painted on, not real." She nodded once. "Stay right here." She picked up the store phone and dialed with quick fingers. I turned to look through the glass. The van had pulled into the lot but stopped at the far edge, engine idling. It sat there for maybe 30 seconds, headlights pointed at my car. Then, slowly, it rolled back, turned around, and left the way it came. The woman behind the counter finished her call and hung up. "You're not the first," she said quietly. "Highway patrol's been trying to catch that person for months. Occasionally he waits at rest areas. Occasionally he waves people down. Don't ever stop alone after dark if you can help it." I thought of the janitor in the bathroom, the silent stare, the glove is by my car. "Does the rest stop have staff this late?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not our counties, just maintenance in the mornings." When she saw my face, her expression hardened. "Are you sure about what you saw?" she asked. I nodded. She picked up the phone again. I ended up waiting there for almost an hour until a trooper came to take my statement. They didn't show me photos, didn't tell me details, but the look he gave the gas station lady when I mentioned the fake uniform told me enough. They knew someone was out there, dressing up like staff, driving the interstate, looking for people who trusted the logo on his chest more than their instincts. I don't drive rideshare anymore, but on the rare nights I do have to use a highway rest area, I pay more attention to who's holding the mop than who's lurking in the dark. This is because one person must work much harder to convince you that he belongs there. The other already has the keys. The scariest thing about that night isn't that I almost got abducted. It's that I matched with him on an app 3 weeks earlier. I was 27, recently single, and living in a small coastal town in Oregon. My friends persuaded me to download a dating application, claiming it was merely to explore the options available. Mostly what was out there were gym selfies, fish photos, and guys who lived 2 hours away. Then I paired them with Caleb. Caleb's profile was weirdly normal. 3 photos, one at a coffee shop, one at a hiking viewpoint, and one blurry group shot. Bio said he was 30, worked in construction management, and liked horror movies and road trips. Nothing about his profile screamed creepy. If anything, it was too boring. We chatted on and off for a week, short messages. We didn't exchange voice notes or make any calls. He answered questions but never asked many. When I suggested meeting for coffee, he said he was super busy with work. When I joked about serial killers, he sent back a laughing emoji and said, "Guess you'll just have to trust me." That line sat wrong with me, but I ignored it. We never managed to line up schedules, and eventually the conversation died. I shrugged it off and muted the app. There were other matches, other conversations that went nowhere. Caleb became just another face in the endless scroll of maybes and neverwheres. 2 weeks later, I was driving back from visiting my parents inland. It was late, around midnight. I took the coastal highway home because it was faster and I knew it well. Dense forest on one side, black ocean on the other. This is the type of road where you can drive for 20 minutes without encountering another vehicle. I had my music on low, windows cracked just enough to let in the salt air. My mind was on autopilot, thinking about work tomorrow, the laundry I'd left in the dryer, and whether I had milk for morning coffee. About 20 minutes outside town, I noticed headlights behind me. Nothing weird about that. The road wasn't completely empty, especially on weekends. What bothered me was that they stayed exactly the same distance for miles. Uphill, downhill, around curves, it was like the car behind me was attached to my bumper. I eased off the gas a little, testing. They eased off too. Red flag number 1. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe they were just tired, zoning out, accidentally matching my speed. It happens. Up ahead, there was a scenic overlook I sometimes stopped at during the day, one of those spots with a view of the cliffs and ocean. At night, it was just a dark pull-off with a low stone wall and zero cell service. On impulse, I put my blinker on like I was going to pull into it. The car behind me did the same. Red flag number 2. My stomach dropped. I canceled the turn at the last second and stayed on the highway, and my heart started to pound. There were no towns between here and home, just a couple of campgrounds and one all-night gas station about 15 miles ahead. I decided I wasn't going straight home. No way was I letting a maybe stalker see where I lived. My fingers itched to grab my phone, but I didn't want to take my eyes off the road. The white line blurred in my peripheral vision. I told myself, get to the gas station, park under the lights, go inside, don't panic yet. The car behind me flipped its high beams on. My rearview mirror turned white. I squinted and flipped the little tab on the mirror to dim it, but the glare still made my eyes water. I gestured in frustration without thinking, just an annoyed wave of my hand. The car honked once, long, aggressive, deliberate. My pulse spiked. "Okay, screw this," I muttered. I hit the home button on my phone, keeping it low in my lap, and opened the dating app almost without thinking. I don't understand why, that's just where my brain went when I thought creeps who know you exist. Maybe I was looking for proof I wasn't crazy, that someone out there had been weird to me before. My messages tab opened. At the top was a new message from Caleb. Long drive. The timestamp said just now. I stared down at it for half a second too long. When I looked back up, my car had drifted over the center line, its tires kissing the rumble strip. The sound jolted me back. Behind me, the headlights swerved slightly too, correcting in sync with me. Every ounce of warmth drained out of my body. My brain tried to rationalize it. Coincidence. He saw my location on the app. Maybe he was driving too and just happened to notice I was online. But my gut knew better. I typed back with shaking fingers. How do you know I'm driving? 3 dots popped up immediately. He was typing fast. Saw you on the highway, grinning face with smiling eyes. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. My profile had my general area listed, but not my routes, not my car, not my schedule. He shouldn't have been able to know I was drivy. NG, unless he was nearby. Unless he was here. He was positioned directly behind me. Following me. My mouth went dry. I glanced up at the rearview mirror again, squinting through the glare. The headlights were mounted high like on a truck or an SUV. The front grille was difficult to see through the brightness. What are you driving? I typed, praying I was wrong, praying this was all some horrible misunderstanding. There was a longer pause this time. The dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. White SUV, don't freak out, lol. I glanced up at my mirror. White high-mounted headlights, SUV shape. Oh God. I fought the urge to slam on my brakes, to scream, to do anything that would make this feel real. Instead, I forced myself to breathe, in through my nose, out through my mouth. I typed with trembling thumbs. You're making me uncomfortable, please back off. His reply came back fast, too fast. Relax, I just thought it'd be fun to say hello. There's a turnout coming up, let's stop and talk. As if on cue, a blue sign appeared up ahead, illuminated by my headlights. Vista Point 1/2 mile. Nope, I whispered to myself. Nope, nope, nope. My mind raced. If I pulled over, I'd be alone with him in the dark. If I kept driving home, he'd know where I lived. The gas station was my only option. I put my blinker on for the other lane, the one that led toward the upcoming exit. The highway split up ahead. Left continued up the coast, and right curved inland toward town and the only 24-hour station. I'm going to the gas station, I typed, trying to sound calm and firm. If you want to talk, do it there with cameras. The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. Afterwards, the dots reappeared. Then, don't be dramatic. I didn't answer. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. The road split. I signaled right and took the exit, tires squealing slightly along the curve. The headlights behind me stayed glued to my bumper and followed. The ramp curved downward and lit up a big glowing sign for the station, 24-hour fuel and mini-mart. There were 3 cars at the pumps and someone walking a dog by the side of the lot near the air pump. Civilization, witnesses, people. I didn't pull up to a pump. I drove right to the front of the store and parked almost against the glass doors, my bumper inches from the entrance. Then I grabbed my phone and my keys and jumped out without even locking the car behind me. The clerk looked up from his magazine, bored at first, then did a double take when he saw my face. I must have looked wild, pale, shaking, eyes too wide. You okay? He asked, straightening up. Guy following me, I said, my voice higher than I wanted. He knows my name. He's been messaging me. Please don't let him talk me into leaving. The clerk's expression shifted from confusion to concern. He nodded once, serious now, and moved closer to the counter where I could see a phone and what looked like a panic button. I turned to the window. A white SUV had pulled into the lot and stopped at a pump on the far side, maybe 50 feet away. It just sat there, engine running, headlights still on. Nobody got out. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside clearly. My phone buzzed in my hand. Caleb, you didn't have to make it weird. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely tap the screen. I blocked him. Then I blocked his number. Then I took screenshots of everything, the messages, the timestamps, his profile. The SUV stayed there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute. Then, slowly, it rolled forward, cruising past the shop front. I could see the driver now through the windscreen, just glimpses in the fluorescent light, a baseball cap pulled low, a pale jaw, a thin mouth. His eyes slid past mine through the glass like I was a stranger, like we'd never matched, never talked. No waving, no smiling, no acknowledgement. He drove out of the lot and disappeared back toward the highway entrance. I didn't move, I just stood there, frozen, watching the empty space where his car had been. The clerk let out a breath. "Creeps," he muttered, shaking his head. "You want me to call someone? Police, highway patrol?" I hesitated, my voice shaky. "Highway patrol, if that's a thing." "Yeah, we got a direct line," he said, already reaching for the phone behind the counter. "Happens more than you'd think out here." We spent the next 20 minutes on the phone with a dispatcher. I showed them the app screenshots, the timing of the messages, and the way he'd known I was driving. I described the SUV, white, older model, tinted windows, no front license plate that I could see. They took it seriously. The dispatcher's voice was calm but firm, asking detailed questions, telling me I'd done the right thing by not stopping and going somewhere public. She even told me they'd had other reports of people being followed from that same stretch of highway over the past few months. The majority of the victims were young women, always late at night, always the same white SUV. They sent a patrol car to escort me home. I waited at the gas station for another 30 minutes, drinking burnt coffee and watching the parking lot, until a sheriff's deputy arrived and followed me all the way to my apartment complex. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with every light on, curtains drawn, and door double-locked with a chair wedged under the handle. A couple of months later, a friend sent me a link to a news article. The headline read, "Man arrested in connection with highway stalking cases." I'm not allowed to share the details. There was a case, a trial, legal stuff I don't fully understand. But I can say this much. When the police finally arrested a man for attempted kidnapping along that same coastal highway, his face looked unfairly familiar. It was not because I recognized him from town. Not because I'd seen him at a coffee shop or a bar. His mugshot resembled a slightly worse-lit version of Caleb's profile picture. Same angle, same smirk, he maintained the same dead-eyed stare. Except this time, he wasn't pretending to blink.